So our next speaker is Dr. Sean Kelly, a colleague and friend, a professor in the Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness program here at CIIS. He's the author of Coming Home, The Birth and Transformation of the Planetary Era, and also of Individuation and the Absolute, Hegel, Jung, and the Path Toward Wholeness. Sean has been very active in developing the integral ecologies track here at CIIS, and is soon publishing a book with the title Integral Ecologies. And he's going to speak to us about ecological conversion, the integral turn of Laudato Si. Let's welcome Sean.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Before I forget, the book, it's a plug for the book, Integral Ecologies, co-edited. The first editor is actually in the back of the room, Sam Mickey. The third editor, Adam Robert. So look for that book coming out with SUNY Press. I want to begin with gratitude as well to Elizabeth for organizing the conference, to the Elizabeth McAnally and Kim and all of the other support people, all the other speakers, and all of you for coming today. And also just deep gratitude for Pope Francis. I was raised Catholic. I'm not a practicing Catholic, and like many people, fell away from sort of any formal association with the church shortly after puberty. And if I had, well, I won't get into, but you can imagine how inspired I was to see this Pope come on the scene, who from the start I felt was truly a light shining in the darkness. And darkness, indeed there is, that I'm sure you're all aware of. One way of characterizing this darkness is a term that I take from my friend and mentor and colleague Joanna Macy, who refers to our times with two terms. One, that it is a time of the great unraveling. What is unraveling? Well, life itself, the fabric of life itself, with the looming mass extinction of species, which is accelerating in our times, accompanied, of course, by the deterioration of habitats, the death of the oceans, and so on. We are in the midst of a great dying. At the same time, however, we are in the midst, Joanna likes to remind us, of a great turning to the possibility, at least, of a life-sustaining society that still holds the hope, if we seize it actively, to halt the unraveling and to generate alternatives to industrial growth society, which, as Richard just alerted us to, with the force of a fundamentalist fanatical religion, is literally destroying the planet. Not only destroying the biological systems, but is maintaining a system of systematic global or planetary apartheid. So apartheid not only between those, the 1% and the rest, but apartheid between the humans and all of the others. Okay. All right, so we're in the midst of a great turning. Now, Joanna highlights three dimensions of the great turning. The first is holding actions, and we see holding actions going on all over the place. The climate march in New York that Mary Evelyn evoked for us is such a prime, inspiring example of that. Blockades going on all over the world, resisting the flow of coal and oil and so on. All kinds of protests trying to halt the machine. The second dimension of the great turning is the creation and implementation of Gaian structures or alternative structures to industrial growth society and business as usual. We see this in everything from alternative currencies and organic and biodynamic farming, land trusts, sustainable communities, the renewable energy, of course, which that movement is gaining a lot of momentum. So Gaian structures, the second dimension of the great turning, is a positive sign of hope, along with the holding actions that inspire such admiration for the courage of the people standing up. Now, the third dimension of the Great Turning is a shift in consciousness, a radical shift in consciousness, which, in Joanne's understanding, is a shift toward an awareness of our deeper, truer identity as integral moments within the living body of Earth, as integral participants, beings within the larger being and body of Gaia, our home, our common home. Now, this shift in consciousness is precisely what Pope Francis is advocating with his notion of ecological conversion. And conversion, of course, means a turning. So here we have a turning, the great turning being rooted in an individual turning or shift of consciousness toward the possibility, the active hope of a life-sustaining society. And you see, along with the possibility and the need for the ethical imperative even for an ecological conversion, Pope Francis calls for the need, particularly for people in situations like ours, if we're educators, thinkers, writers, to develop a field and a practice of integral ecology. And I was so surprised and delighted to see this term pop up, since we in the Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness program have been cultivating this track in integral ecologies for some years, inspired largely by a former student, Sean Esbjorn Hargens, who did his PhD in our program, and in 2007, I think, edited a journal of world futures devoted to integral ecology, and thereby formally launched the field of integral ecology, integral ecologies. Sean Esbjorn Hargens, who along with Michael Zimmerman went on to publish a big fat book called Integral Ecology, bases his view of the field on the work of integral theorist Ken Wilber. And there's lots of exciting stuff that can happen from that approach. But what Sam, Adam, myself, and others have been doing, and Elizabeth with her dissertation, Elizabeth McAnally, and Kim and others, are cultivating a more biodiverse field of integral ecologies in the plural, since we need as many approaches to the idea and practice of integral ecology as we can get. So Pope Francis has given birth to a very powerful new strain, as it were, sort of genetic lineage, or not genetic, but a strain of integral ecology, which is rooted not in the work of Ken Wilber, although there is an indirect influence there through Leonardo Boff, but influenced directly through Leonardo Boff, and behind him Thomas Berry. There are other influences as well. Félix Guattari, French thinker, who proposed the idea of three ecologies: environmental ecology, social ecology, and mental ecology, and the need to have these three ecologies working together. And another French thinker, Edgar Morin. These both influenced Leonardo Boff, and therefore influenced Pope Francis as well. But the primary conduit is through Leonardo Boff and Thomas Berry. And at the center of that lineage is the recognition, as both Richard and Mary Evelyn have alerted us to, the recognition that science without conscience, without conscience, is not only incomplete and fragmented, but is immoral. It's not only unsustainable, but there's something, I won't say evil, but there's a potential for evil to the extent that science or knowledge is pursued in isolation from and even active rejection of the value dimension of our active feeling participation in the living world and communities in which we're embedded. Okay? So science with conscience, with conscience, the humanities with the natural sciences and social sciences and so on, these two streams need to be rewoven together. And of course the modern academy has fought very hard to keep them separate and to fragment each side more or less also into smaller and smaller sub-disciplines. So the main thrust then of an integral ecology is, you could say, and here I'm going to give you 4 principles that I have identified. I've actually identified 5, but I'm only going to give you 4 today, that any integral ecology will manifest in one degree or another, and we see them all active in this wonderful document, Laudato Si. And the first principle is planetary. An integral ecology is by definition planetary. It recognizes that human being, human existence, human behavior cannot be isolated to a city or a community or an artificial nation state, that we are all part of a continuous fabric of interdependence, and that is planetary in scope. Of course, it's cosmological in origin, cosmological in scope, but we need to focus our gaze at least on this concrete universal of the cosmos, which is the living planet. So an integral ecology is planetary. Secondly, it's transdisciplinary. And here I've already mentioned the need to overcome the Manichaean split between the natural sciences and the human and social sciences on the other side, between facts and values, between normal knowledge and spiritually inflected knowledge. A transdisciplinary mode of inquiry and praxis seeks to bring these two sides together in creative dialogue and mutual clarification. It penetrates to the below the surface of discourse to the paradigmatic level, to look for the root metaphors, the root assumptions and values that structure all of our knowledge and experience of the world. And you can see how the Pope has done this very strongly in this document by focusing on the central role of the technocratic paradigm, is what he calls the technocratic paradigm, which sees all knowledge as merely instrumental, lives in the delusion of being able to separate subjects from objects, knowers from that which is known, and so on, and allows knowledge to be hijacked, co-opted, and owned by basically global capitalism, corporate capitalism. There's a very, very strong critique of corporate capitalism, which likes to think of itself as the economy. Whereas the true economy, as the Pope reminds us, is based in the Oikos, our common home, which is the living earth. All right, so planetary, transdisciplinary. The third principle is engaged, right? And this, you can see these principles are all sort of mutually, they imply each other. A truly transdisciplinary form of inquiry and discourse must be engaged. It can't live in the illusion of a third-person, impersonal view from nowhere that doesn't bring values to discourse and to knowledge. It needs to not only recognize these values, but take a stand. We need knowledge, people, we who are devoted to education, to generation of knowledge, need to take a stand to prevent, while there's still time, the unraveling of life on this planet, to put a stop to planetary apartheid. So it's engaged. Finally, the last principle is enchanted. And we saw this beautifully in the quotation from, I can't remember who it was now, Rick Dorkin, yeah, Rich Dorkin, right? Enchanted. Now by that, I just mean a sensitivity to the numinous dimension, the utter mystery of the simple fact of being, which, as we open our eyes and our heart minds, reveals itself to be not quite so simple, but in fact infinitely complex and wondrous in that complexity, where there is no such thing as as an object that is not also a living subject, as Thomas reminds us. Moving to from a view of the world as a collection of objects to a communion of subjects. I could say so much more on all of these principles, but just to show you how the Pope, there's some beautiful things to say about the cosmic Christ and the cosmic Mary, and this wonderful quotation at a certain point where he says, "The universe unfolds in God, who fills it completely. Hence, There is a mystical meaning to be found in a leaf, in a mountain trail, in a dewdrop, in a poor person's face. The ideal is not only to pass from the exterior to the interior to discover the action of God in the soul, but also to discover God in all things. And to that I can only say, amen.